The Physics of Vaiśeṣika. This is the book which I am going to cover today. I will give the introduction. Vaišeshika of Kaṇāda, one of the 6 schools of Indian. Vaišeshika of Kaṇāda, one of the 6 schools of Indian philosophical thought. The other 5 being Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Purvamimamsa, and Uttaramimamsa or Vedanta, concerns itself with the physical reality. It deals with the characteristics of physical entities, their properties, their interactions, including forces, motions of various types. Vaisheshika is called Padartha Shastra, or the science of substance or material entities. It concerns itself with the modeling of the physical world in terms of its own laws of fundamental physical entities, physical behavior, finally culminating in the atomic theory of the universe. As basic physics, Vaisheshika formed the foundation of ancient applied sciences such as Ayurveda, medicine, and Shilpa Shastra or engineering. Along with Vastu Shastra is architecture. Modern science or Western science, originating in Europe during 17th century, comprises many branches. Among the large number of branches of science, physics is commonly identified as the most exact. Physics is the study of the physical world in all its forms and manifestations. Physics depends largely on mathematics, and mathematics is known as the queen of sciences, and physics depends on mathematics as a tool for analysis. Without mathematics, physics cannot function. The quantitative aspects of the physical world are expressed in mathematical form. Without mathematics, physics will remain purely qualitative. So, quantitative expression of observed data of the physical world is possible through mathematical techniques deployed inside physics. That's why it is called mathematical physics, thereby enabling physics to describe the physical phenomena in the most exact manner. That's why it is called the most exact science, physics. Physics deals with the most fundamental entities of the physical world. What are the fundamental entities? In the classical physics, that is Newtonian physics, matter, energy, space, and time. These are the 4 fundamental entities, substances, parameters. So matter is all the objects which you see all around you, everything is matter. And energy is the principle of energy which is parallelly present along with matter. And space is in which the matter resides, and energy also resides, and time is a entity in which matter and energy both operate. Now, we have 2 types of physics. One is classical physics, which is what I told till now, the Newtonian physics, where 4 fundamental entities exist: matter, energy, space, and time, nothing else. There is no God, there is no observer, there is no consciousness, nothing. Only these 4. This is the mechanical universe in which we operate. Like you're coming in a car or bus, it operates on Newton's laws of motion, mechanical universe. So all this which you see is within the realm of classical physics, Newtonian physics. But when it comes to microscopic subatomic levels, this physics will not work. There is a different physics that is called quantum physics. And when it also comes to astrophysics, macro level, the stars, galaxies, and that atlas which is coming down towards Earth, asteroid, all these things operate not in classical physics, but in relativistic physics, not quantum physics. Quantum physics was the microscopic subatomic. And astrophysics is the relativity domain of Einstein, etc. So that operates in the relativity theory. So this quantum theory and relativity theory in two extremes, and in between is the classical physics. So three domains are there. So for these three domains, different laws operate, and the laws of Newton or mechanical universe fail to operate in both the quantum levels, subatomic levels, and also in the macro level of the astrophysics levels. While the Vedas contain all the subjects as knowledge, Vaisheshika is that branch of knowledge of the Veda corresponding to the physical world in the ancient times. The Vedas contain knowledge of all subjects, and each subject is specifically dealt in the darshanas. So Vaisheshika, Yoga, Nyaya, all these darshanas, not that they did not exist before the Sutrakaras were born. The subject exists in Veda itself. Every subject you will find in the Veda. But perspective, classification perspective on particular focused domain is done in the darshanas. So Vaisheshika Darshana is the focus of the physical universe in knowledge in the Vedas. Vedas already contain Anoraniyan, Atomiya, many statements are there. Vedas means including Upanishads, Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka Upanishad. So Vaisheshika Darshana is the oldest known science which deals with the physical world. Whatever I told about the modern science is only 200 years old. If you go back, the human being has been there for 1 lakh years, 100,000 years. So all this huge period of time, there was no modern science. Please note this point. There was nothing called modern science. Only Vedas were there, and their perspective Shastras are there, including Vaisheshika. When you talk of the physical world, Vaisheshika Darshana as a whole and its subject matter covered in the Vedic text, or the Upanishad text, is the only Shastra available for physics, physical world. Physics is a science of the physical world in the modern times, and the Vaisheshika Darshana is the science of the physical world in the ancient times. So both are equivalent, like Ayurveda and Allopathy. Both are, Allopathy is modern science, Ayurveda is ancient. Same, both are same. Both are medicine. And similarly, Shilpa Shastra and engineering. Shilpa Shastra is the original engineering. Modern engineering is modern engineering. So both physics and Vaisheshika Darshana have a single common interest, that is physical world. Their main focus is the physical universe. The constituent entities of the physical world, their qualities or properties, and their interactions, including motions, forces, and so on. So these are the subjects common to both physics and Vaisheshika Darshana. Substances, motions, interactions, forces, and flow of energy, interactions, and so on. Therefore, this book which I wrote, The Physics of Vaiśeṣika, is indicating that the same subject matter is touched upon or dealt with both in Vaiśeṣika and in physics. Just like the same subject is dealt in allopathy and Ayurveda. Same subject is dealt in Shilpa and engineering. Same subject is dealt in architecture and Vastu. Subject is same. That's why very important point is plain knowledge of Sanskrit or plain knowledge of English is not adequate. Just if you know English, it doesn't mean you know anatomy. Gray's anatomy book is that big book. All the MBBS students study it. All those who know English, if they read it, they cannot understand. Only the medical students will understand. Similarly, Sanskrit knowing people, if they read Charaka Samhita, they will not understand. Similarly, if they read Vaisheshika, they will not understand unless they know physics. They will understand only if they know the subject matter. It's not just the language. Subject matter should be there. So those who study literature or philosophy or grammar, etc., are not able to understand the science in Vaisheshika, the physics in Vaisheshika, or medicine in Charkasamhita, Ayurveda, or Vastu Maya, Mayamatam, Vishwakarma Vastu and Maya Mahanasaram Silpa Shastram. 12-story buildings are described. Because it requires that subject to understand. That subject, if you know, then you understand. As the first step in the development of any science is the identification of the fundamental categories. Like we have talked classical physics, matter, energy, space, and time. Only 4 fundamental codes. In Vaiśeṣika Sūtras of Kaṇāda, that is the oldest in the Vaisheshika after the Vedas. The physical reality is modeled in terms of 6 fundamental categories or substances. First is dravyas, substances. Second is gunas, their properties. Third is karma, motion. Karma means in Vedanta Shastra, karma means something else. In Vaisheshika, karma means something else. Karma in Vaisheshika means motion. And samanya, generalization. And Vaisheshika, specialization. Vaisheshika word comes from specialization. Vaisheshika. And sixth is samavaya, inherence. Like heat is inherent in fire. Light is inherent in sunlight, sun, like that. And these 6 Shatpadarthas were the original only 6 Padarthas of Vaisheshika. But later on, over the centuries of scholars, they have added some more. They added 7th one, 8th one, 9th one, and 10th one. 7th one is abhava, non-nothingness, which became the ultimate truth in Buddhism. Only nothingness is only truth according to Buddhism. Thus, the Physics of Vaiśeṣika, this book, you can read it. I'm going to give it to the library here. Brings out the physics of Vaisheshika Darshana among 10 chapters of Vaiṣeṣika Sūtras. First 5 are dealing directly physics. They are covered word-to-word translation and comment interpretation, Pratipadartha Tatparyam, plus separate commentary. I didn't mix up. I gave Pratipadartham, then I gave Tatparyam, then I gave my own comment. So that's where the difference is there between other books of Vaisheshika, which are not able to interpret physics. Whereas in my book, for the last 5,000 years, physics is interpreted in Sanskrit only in my book. All other books are interpreting philosophy, not physics. There's a lot of difference. So the last 5 chapters, I have picked up only a few sutras, but first 5 chapters I covered all sutras, word to word, dot to dot. So in the first 5 chapters, Vaisheshika's view of the physical world is brought out clearly. It comprises the fundamental entities, matter, energy, space, and time of physics, and their interactions through various forces, gravitation, electricity, magnetism. We study in our physics books. All are covered in. Believe it or not. Laws of motion, laws of Newton, Boyle's law, Pascal's law, electricity basic definition, and also the decomposition of water through electricity or synthesis of water. I'll touch upon some of these things in today's lecture. Vaisheshika models the physical world in terms of the eternal atoms, finally atoms, as the ultimate building blocks of the universe. And this model of the indivisible ultimate building blocks of the universe, being the atoms, continued for how many years? 5,000 years. Till John Dalton of the 18th century. And after John Dalton, Rutherford was the first man who gave the planetary model of the atom. Within the atom, there are more parts. Otherwise, the atom is supposed to be indivisible. So only 1956, Rutherford performed experiments where he located electrons, protons and neutrons, nucleus and electrons going around the nucleus like planets go around the sun. Planetary model of the atom was given by Rutherford. And we have done experiments in our colleges, physics department, electronics department. We do experiments. What Rutherford told, show the electronics and communication department. The whole thing is based on electron. And of course, the nuclear bomb and all are based on the nucleus, proton and neutron, not on electron, only on breaking the nucleus, that is fission. We'll come to all that a little later. So the eternal atoms, eternal means nityam, sab kakarnavat nityam, he says. The atomic theory which continued till the 18th century, while historians of science are generally unaware of the contributions of ancient India to physics. Historically, Vaisheshika was merged quite unfairly with Nyaya. The greatest Anyaya was to merge Vaisheshika with Nyaya or logic. While it is true that they're both together, they have a lot of commonality link. Vaisheshika is the science of physical world or physics itself of the ancient world and had its own independent and exclusive status, and has been sometimes denied, refused, and dumped by the logicians, especially in the Middle Ages, while Nyaya concerns itself with the epistemology of the acquisition of valid knowledge, how to acquire knowledge, valid pramana, that is the Nyaya Shastra, Pramana Shastra. Whereas Vaisheshika is the Pramaya Shastra. It is Padartha, totally different. Like mathematics and physics. You can't say physics is only mathematics. No doubt, mathematics plays a very crucial role, but physics has its own existence. You cannot say if I study MA mathematics, I got MS physics. They are two different things. Vaisheshika concerns itself with the ontological aspects, the constituents of the universe, the atoms and molecules, and the substances, motions, forces, acceleration, gravitation, electricity, magnetism, all this. On the other hand, the first darshana, Sankhya of Kapila, also deals with the fundamental categories, but as they arise in the mind. The Sankhya does not recognize external universe other than what is arising in the mind as the Panchendriyas corresponding Panchabhutas. That's all. Sankhya does not recognize dravya. Sankhya does not recognize karma, motion. So there is a difference. Sankhya is the early model. Vaisheshika is much later. In time sequence also. Kapila is much earlier to Kaṇāda. Some linkage there. Those Panchabhutas are becoming dravyas in Vaisheshika, but more dravyas are also there. And more details of interactions of dravyas and their classification, instantiation, all those things. All that was not recognized by Sankhya. In Sankhya, they don't recognize any substance. That means it is not physics. It is only perception. It's a science of perception. But Vaisheshika is physics because it is accepting dravya. And without dravya, there cannot be any interactions, chemical interactions, which can produce medicine. That is why the whole of Ayurveda is based on Vaisheshika. If there is no Vaisheshika, there is no Ayurveda. That much is the importance. The dravya guna karma, the dravya gunas are fundamental things in Ayurveda, medical, chemical interactions. So while the Vaisheshika Sūtras of Kaṇāda, let us go into the historicity time sequence, chronology. While the Vaisheshika Sūtras of Kaṇāda are of great antiquity, of a period of very remote time belonging to post-Vedic, obviously, but pre-Puranic. Please note this point. Pre-Puranic. what is usually known as the Sutra period. All sutras came out, Sankhya Sutras, Yoga Sutras, Nyaya Sutras, Vaisheshika Sutras. In its extant commentaries, and then those commentaries which are alive, available today, belong to a period of recent knowledge in the last 2000 years only. Even though the time period of Kaṇāda Vaisheshika Sutra is not known with exactness or definiteness, a Chinese tradition describes Kaṇāda being of a great antiquity of at least 1,000 years before Buddha. So there is evidence before Buddha, 1,000 years is the time period for Kaṇāda by Chinese calculations. Not by British calculation, all bogus. 5th century, 4th century, 6th century, like that, they tell for everything. So, damn the British calculations, you have to go outside. Unfortunately, the series of successive commentaries of earlier periods are not available to us anymore. Everything gone. There was a large time interval between original Vaisheshika Sūtras of Kaṇāda and the commentaries starting with the Prashasthapada, estimated 5th century AD, who is also having names like Prashastamati, Prashastadeva, Prashastakaradeva. While we lost most of the early commentaries, including one Katandi, one Vritti by Bharadwaja, and one commentary by Ravana. Which Ravana we don't know. The earliest text we have with us today is Prashastapada's own text known as Padartha Dhamma Samaya. I studied for many years that book, and based on that, I have written this book. Because that book is very rarely available, but that is the only book which is giving the physics interpretation to Vaisheshika Sutras. The text is not exactly commentary to Vaisheshika Sutras, but his own book. He wrote another book which is a word-to-word commentary to Vaisheshika, but it is lost. It's not available. And we also have many other books written after Prashasthapada. The commentaries on Vaisheshika are found from the more recent periods of the time. Kiranavali of King Udayana, 11th century AD, is a commentary on Prashasthapada's work. Upaskara of Shankar Mishra of 15th century is commentary on Vaisheshika Sutras with a heavy dependence on Prashasthapada. Atreya wrote a bhashya to Vaisheshika Sutras where the critique was given by Vadiraja. Who is Vadiraja? Madhva Sampradaya. His samadhi is there in Mantralayam. If not, all the works and even references mostly are traceable to scholars of Nyaya. All of them are Nyaya scholars. Prominent of them being Prabhakara, Bhatta, Jayadatta, Anna Bhatta, Mallavadi, Murari Mishra, Chakradhara, Simhasavi, Sri Vallabha, Raghunatha, Raghurama, Jayarama, Venidatta, and Ujjwala. All these are Nyayikas, but they wrote commentaries to Vaisheshika. Some of them had access to some of the lost ancient commentaries. Very interestingly, what is not available to us today was available to them, such as Katandi and Vakya. For example, Udayana himself, King Udayana, refers to in his Kiranavali to a Vaisheshika Bhashya as being very, very large and extensive, and the same is ascribed to Ravana by Padmanabha Mishra. In 16th century, in his Kiranavali Bhashya, Padmanabha Mishra wrote Bhashya to Kiranavali. And Kiranavali time, 11th century, he had access to Ravana's Bhashya. We don't know which, it may not be original Ravana, maybe somebody will do. None of the commentaries post Prashasthapada attempted a physics-based interpretation. You will be surprised when I was working on this. I took about 20 years to write this book. So the best scholars I met throughout India, throughout the world. So one Piali Paul is there in Jalopur University. So she told me, don't read all these Nyaya commentaries. If you read all the Nyaya commentaries, then your brain also will become like that. And your commentary also will become another Nyaya. Read only original Prashasthapadas and you think on your own from physics point of view. Then only you will be able to write correctly. So a lot of scholars have done damage by interpreting wrongly. The original Vaisheshika Sutras talking something, and the later Vaisheshika books are talking something else. And from the modern science point of view, the later Nyaya scholars' interpretations of Vaisheshika Darshan are totally wrong. The other day, somebody was asking me, I told him also, utter meaningless things they talk because they don't do anything practical work. One of the reasons why India became backward in science is our Sanskrit scholars, without doing practical research or experimentation, started talking everything imaginary. Whereas in the Western countries, they were doing practical. Same thing which is there in the sutras. I will show you. None of the commentaries post Vaisheshika attempted a physics-based interpretation. They all give a philosophical. If you look at some of the, for example, if you take Dayanand Saraswati's Bhashya to Veda, he will tell the same thing to everyone. All names, Indra, Mitra, Varna, everything he ascribes to one Parabrahma. Oh, that's all. Similarly, same thing is repeated again. I mean, if it is so, then why so many names are there? If all are same, then why so many names are there? So why so many mantras are there? So the lot of such things have happened. Not that they wanted to do deliberately, but they did in their own way, and it turns out to be wrong. That's why it has to be told. Wrong is wrong. Even Shankaracharya told. Shankaracharya recognized Buddha as Bhagavan. Bhagavan Ityaha. He said this, but this is against Veda. This is wrong. He told clearly. He respected Buddha, but he said this statement is wrong. So we have today also we have to call spade a spade. If there are some books on Vaisheshika by some Nyayikas which are talking utter nonsense from physics point of view, we have to dump. So we have to dump the Nyaya cloud and take original thinking of the interpretation of the same sutras. And that is how this book I could write. And there were others who tried other books based on Prashastapada's Padartha Dharma Sangraha, and they said Dashapadartha Shastra of Chandramati, who introduced Abhava as one of the Shatpadarthas and seventh Padartha. And it is translated into Chinese by Yuan Song himself in 648 AD. I went to Nalanda, I saw the Yuan Song Museum, all details are available, what Yuan Song did. Thus, the origins of physics can be traced back to the Vaiśeṣika Sūtras of Kaṇāda of very great antiquity of 1000 years before Buddha. And later to Padartha Dharma Sangraha Prashastapada, 5th century AD, much later. All the other available commentaries are more recent origin. Upaskara of Shankar Mishra, 15th century, Kirnavali of Udayana, 11th century, Setu of Padmanabha Mishra, 16th century. All these texts have been studied all through the history. Please note this. In all through the history, all these books have been studied in the Gurukulas. That means physics was being studied, but it was covered by Nyaya. Problem. Until modern science originated in the Western countries, Europe, in 18th century. Just 1,000 years before Buddha. Now the new date of Buddha is 1900 BC. That means we are going to 2900 BC, 3000 BC for Kaṇāda. And after that, now 2000 years. So 5000 years. The same subject is continuing as the original system of physics, and that is Vaisheshika. Now, I have to make it very clear that the Vaisheshika stops at the atomic model of the universe. And it uses the word Sat, Akaranavat Nityam. Sat means ultimate existence, which is atomic in form. But the unitary view of the world, the Advaita view of the world, is in the Vedanta, not in Vaisheshika. So I'll touch upon it. The Indian philosophical models of the physical reality went much beyond the perspective of classical physics. Classical physics is what Vaisheshika is talking mostly, though a little other things I'll come to it later. Advaita, based on the Upanishads, presents a unitary view of the physical reality. Sarvam Khalvilam Brahma. According to Advaita, Brahma, or the unknowable absolute reality, is the essence of existence whose apparent manifestations in the multifarious world, this universe which you see, is the multifarious manifestation of the single truth, which is Brahman. Sat. Same thing, Vaisheshika uses the word Sat, Akaranavat, Nityam, but reduces to only atoms. It doesn't talk beyond atoms. And due to Maya, the multifarious universe appears, even though the reality is only one, according to Advaita. There is no Maya in Vaisheshika. In quantum mechanics, the nature of the physical world, as expressed in Schrodinger's wave equation, is described to be the expression of Maya by Schrodinger himself. Schrodinger knows Advaita, and he himself said, my equation is representing Maya. Because the variable chi is having multiple instances and interpretations, not one. So in different interpretation, different version of the universe will be manifest in the same equation. The relativity of space and time, as expressed in Indian philosophy, just now I told you the macroscopic level, relativity theory. So the relativity of space and time is expressed in the special theory of relativity of Einstein, where there is an equation of change in space and time, the root of 1 minus v square by c square. V is your velocity, c is the velocity of light. As your velocity increases, v square by c square increases, and 1 minus that becomes reduced. So if v is equal to c, by any chance, if you can travel at velocity of light, your space is zero and your time is zero. That is the special theory of relativity, which has been proven to be real. How? They have taken atomic clocks, which give the 10 to the power of minus 9 seconds, and the high-speed jets. They took them and saw the time from there, and the time varied according to Einstein's equation. And the space between two entities, so in the sky, you have 2 points. This space between them, as you observe, is based on the speed of Earth when you are observing from Earth. But if you are going in a very high-speed rocket, the same space interval will be differently observed. That is what is special theory of relativity. So the classical physics model of the 4 fundamental entities, matter, energy, space, and time, gets nullified in the relativity theory. Because space and time are not absolute. They can become zero also. If according to that equation, if you travel at velocity equal to light, your space is zero, your time is zero. If you travel at velocity greater than c, light, then your time will go negative. You go back to past. So that's why we have the various anecdotes like the twin paradox. The twin paradox means 2 twins. One of them takes a rocket and goes into space at a very high speed. Other fellow is on Earth. So when the other fellow comes back after some time, this fellow might have spent hundreds of years, whereas his time is only a small fraction. He'll be young and this will be old.
I think that 360 was also based on.
The same thing is mentioned in Harivamsa Purana about Revati's marriage. Raivata, her father, goes to Brahmaloka to ask who is going to marry her. So Brahma tells him, wait for some time because he was busy in a meeting. Then after 10 minutes, he said, what are you talking? By the time you came here and you met me, thousands of millions of years have passed on earth. So now you go back, one Balarama will be there, he will marry you. That means comes back. This is there even in other cases. One fellow goes to heaven and participates in the war. What is his name? Indra asks him what bull you want. Varam this Menga. First he asks how much time I have left. He says you have 20 minutes left. 20 minutes. So this is well known in our Puranas and so the classical physics model of four fundamental entities, matter, energy, space, and time, gets fundamentally transformed in modern physics. In the context of relativity theory, space and time do not have absolute existence. They are related to the observer. So when the observer travels at velocity of light, both space and time become zero. Thus, they don't have absolute existence. Thus, we have to reduce the four fundamental entities only to two, matter and energy. That is as far as the special theory of relativity is concerned. Matter and energy are considered independent in classical physics. Because in the mechanical universe in which we live, the transformation between matter and energy does not happen. Whereas it happens in the atomic, subatomic level, in quantum level, and also in the astrophysical level. So Einstein derived the general theory of relativity based on the special theory, same equations. Finally, he got the equation E is equal to mc squared. That means matter and energy are interconverting. If you convert 1 gram of matter into energy, it will be equivalent to C squared, that is 3 into 10 to the power of 8 whole square, 9 into 10 to the power of 16 watts. 1 gram of matter. So if you can convert, that's what happens in atom bomb. The 1 gram of matter is converted, it will become 9 into 10 to the power of 16 watts, which can burn a whole state. It can remove a whole Telangana state can be removed if you convert 1 gram of matter into energy. What happens in the atom bomb? And the vice versa happens in cosmic rays. Energy gets converted into particles. Radiation coming from outer space gets converted into particles, positrons, neutrons, neutrinos, and so on. The equation demonstrates the unitary and interconvertible nature of matter and energy. So matter and energy are interconvertible in the ultimate sense. So classical physics model is gone. Matter is separate, energy is separate, space is different, time is different, absolute, all that is gone. That will be okay for the mechanical world, but not in the totality. Thus, when you ask a question philosophically, what is the final truth? Then you have to say there is some X which is manifest as matter or as energy, depending on the observer, the space-time framework of the observer. It will appear as matter or energy or space and time according to the observer. So the observer is becoming important and everything is merged into one. And that X, which is one, which is becoming M or E, matter or energy, is called Brahman in Advaita. So the answer could be one which becomes many, all forms of matter or all forms of energy. This one was explained as Brahman in Advaita Vedanta Upanishads. The parallelism between one Brahman of Upanishads, which manifests as universe, and one absolute reality, which manifests as different forms of matter or different forms of energy in the universe, cannot be ignored or dismissed or resorted. In fact, all these people know Upanishads very well, Einstein himself and Schrödinger himself and Oppenheimer, who made the atom bomb. When the atom bomb was blast, he cited the 11th chapter sloka, Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhavet Yugavadantita, Yadi Bhasam Trishishcheva Syat Bhasastasma. That cinema also came, Oppenheimer said. So all these people were German Jews, they were good Sanskrit scholars, and they were the one who brought America to the top level. They were kidnapped from, they were lifted from Germany to America after the Second World War. All of them. Every one of them is a German Jew. Einstein, Schrödinger, Oppenheimer, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, everyone. The Vaiśeṣika Sūtras of Kaṇāda, the unity comes out at Sat. In Vaisheshika, unity is Sat, equivalent to Brahman of Vedanta, which is the essence of all existence. And knowing and understanding that Sat will result in moksha, liberation. The observer of modern physics was identified as Atman in Vaisheshika. That is the important contribution of Vaisheshika Sutras. Observer was fundamental, as fundamental as matter, energy, space, and time. In Vaisheshika. In classical physics, only four are there, but in Vaisheshika, there are nine. Pratibhyapasteyo vairākāsa tikkalama atma iti dravyani. So observer was identified. So in this book, an attempt has been made to unearth and demonstrate the evidence of awareness and knowledge of the basic principles of physics, including atomic theory in the Vaiṣeṣika Sūtras of Kaṇāda, whose antiquity is unassailable and is well known to have large precedence over the Western source of physics, including the recent sources 18th century and also the ancient Greek sources Demetrius' atomic theory of 4th century BC. It is hoped that this endeavor will bring a better assessment and appreciation of the hallowed tradition of ancient Indian science. This is my introduction of this book. And the foreword is written by Subhash Kak, who is the topmost scientist in the world. He is the advisor to Prime Minister of India. He wrote foreword to my book. And the Vedic University Tirupati has published this book, TTD, SV Vedic University, and Vice Chancellor also wrote the foreword. So now I just gave you the introduction. Of course, I will read the foreword by Subhash Kak, also very short one. I'll read out for you. It is with great pleasure that I am writing this foreword to CSR Prabhu's Physics of Vaiśeṣika. It consists of translation of Kaṇāda's sutras together with a commentary. This book fulfills the great need since Vaisheshika, which represents the earliest physics, is not well known to the Indian scientific community, let alone Western scientific community. The Vaisheshika is a starting point that is somewhat different from Western physics in as much as it includes the observer in the framework. In the Indian tradition, the six darshanas are cognitive windows through which one perceives the reality. One of them, two of the atomic perspective, logic, Nyaya, and matter, Vaisheshika. A further two analysis of creation on physical, Sankhya, and psychological level is yoga. And the last two are analysis of the lived life, Mimamsa, and the cosmos, Vedanta. The Vaisheshika defines 7 categories of experience. 7th one is introduced by Chandramati. Kaṇāda had only 6. Substance, quality, action, universality, particularity, relation, and non-existence. Each atom in Vaisheshika possesses size and mass and is distinct from every other atom. Atoms can vibrate in groups. Vayanuka, Trayanuka, they vibrate, which is true. Even today, you can see the atoms vibrating as molecules until the combinations reach a diameter of 1/1,000,000th of an inch, at which state the substances can be identified as earth, air, fire, etc. That is higher aggregations only. You can identify solid, liquid, gas, etc. But otherwise, same atoms are there at the bottom. The atom is point-like, for it could be otherwise it could be subdivided. So as I said, the subdivision of atom took place only in 1956 onwards. Till then, it was not. Vaisheshika has categories not only for space-time matter, but also for attributes related to perception of matter. It starts with 6 nameable, knowable categories: Padarthas, Dravya, Guṇa, Karma, Samanya, Vishesha, Samavaya. The first 3 are objective and the last 3 are perception. Samanya, Vishesha, Samavaya, perception. The universal Samanya recurrent generic properties of substances in qualities and motions. The particularities Vishesha reside exclusively in the eternal non-composite substances, in the atoms, in souls, in minds. Samavaya is the relationship between entities that exist at the same time. So it is the bonding amongst categories that makes it possible for us to synthesize our experience. Our experience, which you see, which is called Maya in Vedanta, is a combination of these 3, Samanya, Vishesha, and Samvaya, along with Dravya, Guṇa, Karma. So the mind associates non-substance categories with substance. It's a perception. By doing so, it makes observer central to the scheme. If there are no sentient beings in the universe, then there will be no need for these categories. This is what Subhashika wrote. Now I will just also read the foreword written by uh, Devanathan, Vice Chancellor. Recently he came and I met him also. The system of Vaisheshika is considered as one among the 6 major philosophies of ancient India. The Vaisheshika system propounded by sage Kaṇāda is called Padartha Shastra. As it deals with material entities, Kaṇāda holds that by knowing the characteristics of entities, one will attain liberation. Why you have to know all this? If you know all this, you will get moksha. Jnanat dravya guna karma samanya visesha samayanam padadhanam sadhana vaidabhyam tattvajnanat nisrayasa. The Vaisheshika system deals with the physical world. The Nyaya system deals with valid means of knowledge. The scholars understand Nyaya and Vaisheshika systems as identical ones. He admitted, but they are different in many respects. The Vaisheshika system deals with the establishment of Ishvara by inference, explanation about dharma and adharma, necessity of samvaya, visesha, and other entities like Shabda in contrast to Nyaya Shastra. He referred to my name. He's a renowned scientist known for his critical analysis. He has written this monograph to establish that the Vaisheshika Darshana is the science of physics. He does not accept Nyaya as identical to Vaisheshika system. He has rendered commentaries to Vaisheshika Sūtra in its text. So I'm happy to bring forward this book by SV Vedic University, which is an admixture of traditional and modern science. So this is what Devanathan wrote. Now I will go into the sutras themselves. We have time, about 1 hour. Adhato dharma vyakhyasyamaha. Kaṇāda first. Now we will talk about dharma. Dharma is the goal of entire human life, civilization, culture, and literature. Mahabharata is known as the Shastra of Dharma. There are many well-known Dharma Shastras, like Manu Dharma Shastra and so on. Dharma can be multifariously defined and described, originating from the verb root, dhru, which means to hold or sustain. So therefore, Dharma stands for universal law, universal virtue, which hold the universe up. Ritam in the Rigveda, Ritam is used. Ritam Satyam Param Brahma. Universe is held up due to the universal laws. Satyenotthabita bhumihi. The laws of nature, including the laws of physics, which is the present subject, they comprise dharma. So when Kaṇāda talks of dharma, he is not talking of punishments in courts of law and all those things. He's talking of physics as the dharma. In the context of physics, dharma can be interpreted as the body of rules and laws which determine the behavior of the physical world, with all its constraints, all forms of matter, energy, space, time, and forces such as gravitation, electrostatic forces, and magnetic force, and so on. So next sutra, yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. So defining all Maharshis like Kaṇāda, they will define whatever words they use in the previous sutra. So he has used the word dharma, so he is now defining dharma. Dharma is that from which progress and liberation both are achieved. Nishreyasa. So dharma can be understood from a variety of perspectives: legal, social, moral, religious, individual, universal, and also from purely physics perspective. In the context of Vaisheshika, the physical perspective may be considered. The laws on which the physical world or physical reality operates can be called as dharma of the physical world. Dharma means natural tendency or law. In other words, the science of physics can be considered as dharma of the physical world. So physics is the dharma of the physical world. So if you go to the court of law, that is only social level, not physics. Evidently, the knowledge of the laws of physics, physical world can lead to abhyudaya, material progress, by means of the application to technology, which can result in material and economic development. It should also lead to nishreyasa, the highest good, which is the spiritual enlightenment of the individual and society, without which plain material progress and wealth creation can lead to unhappy, immoral conditions and also social tensions. Why? Can you tell me why? You made a lot of money, lot of progress. America, capitalist. But America is the worst country in the world. It has got maximum crime. In New York, there is a street called 42nd Street. Every 3 minutes, there is a murder there. Nobody dare go in night after. Not only in New York, in Chicago also. In every big city in America, nobody will go to the main city after 7 o'clock. Crime. Why? Why? Because there are so many poor people. They are streaming on the road in Los Angeles, in New York, in Atlanta. They become criminals. They will kill you. I myself was attacked 3 times. Give money, I gave off. If you don't give, you'll be killed. Called mugging. That doesn't happen in India. Every poor man is not a criminal in India because there is religion involved. Some people only become criminals, not all. Of course, it's a different matter that usually rich people are criminals. So plain material progress and wealth creation can lead to unhappy, immoral conditions, social tensions, crime, divorce, drugs, guns. That's what is happening today. Thus, material progress, when combined with social, moral, and ethical progress, that is nisresa, when both are there, that will lead to highest good, nisresa, which shall lead to freedom, moksha. Moksha is freedom. It's not after death what happens. Even when you are alive, you should have freedom. That is moksha sthiti, which is the total freedom and independence of the individual. Swarajyam, Samrajyam, they say in Vedanta. That is total freedom, nishreyasa, without which there is dependence and suffering, dukkha. Only such dharma is essential. Dharma is of 2 types, pravritti lakshana and nivritti lakshana. Nivritti lakshana leads to moksha, pravritti lakshana is social well-being and balance. So that's why he insisted, yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. And nobody has done any better definition than this. Everybody quotes this in all their natures. Tadvachanadamnayasya pramanyam. Dharmavachanat amnayasya pramanyam. Veda gets its pramanya because it is dharmavachana. So Veda defines dharma, Veda declares dharma, therefore dharma, Veda becomes, suppose Veda doesn't declare dharma, then it doesn't become pramanya. Suppose I write a book, and I write a book on some subject, that doesn't become pramanya. Similarly, if somebody wrote some book, Quran or something else where there is adharma, that cannot be declared as pramanya. Tadvachanad amnayasya pramanyam. So in this sutra is interpreted as the main basis for classifying Vaisheshika as a Vaidika Darshana and Seshvara Darshana, because Veda clearly declares Ishvara and he is supporting Veda, saying Veda is Dharmavachana. Next, Dharma Vishesha Prasuta, with the detailed origin of principles of Dharma, dravya, guṇa, karma, samanya, vishesha, samvayanam, tadatnanam, sadhana, vaidamyam, tattvajnanam, nishreyasa. How you are getting nishreyasa? Through Dharma, because you will get the ultimate knowledge of the final truth. If you understand the interactions of dravya, guṇa, karma, and their abstractions, perception of samanya, vishesha, samvaya, sadharmya, vaidharmya, similar properties, dissimilar properties. What is all this? This is physics. What is physics? It is nothing but physics. Dravya, guṇa, karma, samanya, vishesha, samvayanam, dravya, paladhanam, sadharmya, vaidharmyabhyam, tattvajnanat, nishreyasam. So Kaṇāda is describing the details of physics as the source of mysterious awe. Even Einstein didn't say this, Newton didn't say this. No physicist till today said physics will give you motion. Kaṇāda said it. So greatest physicist is Kaṇāda himself. Now, of course, the dravya, what are dravyas? Because he has said dravya guna karma samani, which he will now define. Prithivya, Pastejo, Vairākāsha, Tikkal, Mana, Atma, iti dravya. 9 dravyas. Prithivya, Pastejo, Vairākāsha, Panchabhutas plus dik, direction, space, and kala, time, and manas and atma. This is the most important. He has added manas and atma, which comprise the observer, which is coming out in quantum physics. Now, after 1960s, 50s, he told this 5,000 years. Without the observer, there cannot be observation. There is no observation, there is no buddhi, there is no why, nothing. So observer is found. Now, one has to be very careful in understanding what is Prithvi, what is Vayu, what is Akasha. Akasha is ether. Until the Michelson-Morley experiment, ether was, in fact, Maxwell's laws on which the mobile communications, everything works, del cross H is equal to pi and so on. They are all based on the hydraulic motion of the ether. Ether is a superfluid. It has no density, zero density. Only relativity theory, in Michelson-Morley experiment, ether was dismissed and therefore velocity of light was accepted as ultimate and final constant, and that is how relativity things. Okay, there are some people who claim that velocity of light varies. Some people are there. If that is so, then Einstein theory will go over a toss. It's still not confirmed that it varies. Velocity of light is constant and it is upper limit. No, it can reach velocity greater than that. 1,86,000 miles per second. And this is described in the Sayana velocity of light is described. How they know God only knows. He described the distance. Daily Surya, in Hanuman Chalisa, the distance to sun is described. Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parabhanu, Yotani Madhura Palada. And the speed of light is described in Sayamash. Rupa Sagandha Sparsha Sankhya Parimanani Prathaktam Samyoga Vibhago Paratva Paratve Buddhaya Sukadukhe Icha Dvesho Prayatnascha Guna. Gunas comprising of all the 9 dravyas. Icha Dvesha Sukha Dukha. They are not physical. They are for Mana and Atma combination. The observer. Ruparasas, Shabdas, Parsha, Ruparasa, Gandhadis, and all the 5 are there in Prithvi, and one by one they will be reduced. Te Akashe Navidyate, none of them in Akasha. But a very important point to note is that Akasha is not space. Akasha is ether. He has given dik as a space. And it's correct. Because what is Cartesian space? X, Y, Z coordinates. It's a directional space. It is not ether. That's why he has given dik separately. I've given all this detailed explanation. If I read each and every word, it will take many days. Now I'll go to karma. Karma means prarabdha karma, all those things are wrong here. They are not relevant here. Utkshepana, Vakshepana, Kunchanam, Prasaranam, Gavanam. Upward motion, downward motion, contraction, expansion, transmission, and general motion, Gavanam. And Prashastapada has elaborated the word Gavana, Gavana Grahana, Brahman, Recha, Spanda, Urdhajvarana, Tiryak Patana, Namana, Manonmana, Namana, Manonmanadayaha, Gamana Vishesha. Like quartz crystal vibrations and all kinds of possible Brahmana, Rechana, Spandana. Spandana is heartbeat, quartz crystal, all kinds of motion. So general motion. Only thing is, it is not given mathematical equation. That is given somewhere else, not here. This is purely conceptual, qualitative treatment of physical reality. Bhaskara, Avara, they have given equations. Much later. Sadanityam dravyavat karyam karanam samanya vishesha vadati dravya guna karmanam avishesha. Now, normally in science or physics, we assume that there is a substance. But here is defined what is substance and what is motion, what is property. It defines formally everything. So, what is common? What are the common features of dravya guna karma? Dravya guna karmanam avishesha. Sadanityam dravya karanam samanya vishesha. Dravya gunayo sajatiya arambhakatvam sadhamyam. Both dravya and gunas will be initiated by their own class of dravya and guna. Dravyani dravyantaram arambhante gunascha gunantaram. Dravyas become other dravyas, gunas become other dravyas. Karma sadhyam na vidyate. Now, the fundamental law of science, physics, law of conservation of matter. Na dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. Na dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. No substance destroys its own effect and cause. That means law of conservation of matter.
The explicit law only. By meaning, the explicit law.
I am reading you I have given word by word meaning. Na dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. Now, impossibility of perpetual motion. That's one of the fundamental laws of physics. Karya virodhi karma. Karya virodhi karma. Motion is the enemy of motion.
Total story.
Properties of substance. What is a substance? Nobody asks this question in any physics department. This fellow is answering that question. Kriya gunavat samaya samavayi karanamti dravya lakshanam. The characteristics of dravya are to be having motion, having qualities, and being the cause of inherence of qualities and motions, or being a cause with inherent motions and qualities. Similarly, he will define quality, guṇa. Dravyasraya gunavan samyoga vibhageshu akaranam anapeksham iti guna lakshanam. They are going more deeply formally than any physicist would go in defining substance properties. The characteristics of quality are being dependent on the material entities or substance and being not a cause of conjunction and disjunction. Properties of motion. Has anybody thought about this? What is motion? Ekadravyam agunam samyoga vibhageshu anapekshakaranamiti karma lakshanam. Dravya guna karmanam dravyam karanam samanyam. అన్నిటికీ ద్రవ్యం ఉంటేనే గుణం ఉంటుంది, కర్మ ఉంటుంది. కారణాభావాత్ కార్యాభావ అని ఇంకొక సూత్రం. అది ఫండమెంటల్ లా ఆఫ్ కాజేషన్.
Beyond physics, correct?
Yeah, physics plus plus. With now counting, starting from 2, Dvitva pravritayah sankhyaah prathakta samyoga vibhagascha. Now inertia, first law of motion of Newton. Asamavayat samanya karyam karma na vidyate. Due to non-being inherent, motion does not exist as a generalized effect always. Now, upward motion. Gurutva prayatna samyoga utkshepanam. The combination of gurutva, gravitation, opposite direction, and prayatna, effort, force. Now the causality principle. I finished chapter 1, part 1, part 2 lo. First Karana bhava, karya bhava. Nothing will happen without a cause. Just contrast with all other religious texts of other religions. They tell the opposite. You cannot ask any question. You cannot ask why. He's telling why. Without why, nothing will happen in this world. There has to be a cause. Karana bhavat, karya bhavaha. Not to karya bhavat, karana. But there can be a cause without an effect. But every effect has a cause. And every cause could be an effect, except the original cause. Akaranavat. That's why he called Sat Akaranavat Nitya. Atoms are the original cause. Now, what is generalization? Samanyam Vishesha iti Buddhyapeksham. Generalizations, specializations are abstractions of the mind. What is existence? Has anybody asked this question? Bhavaha anuvrittereva hetutvat samanyameva. The notion of existence is only a generalization. The grasp of intellect being the cause. And the formula is Dravyatvam, gunatvam, karmatvam cha, samanyani, visheshancha, visheshascha. All the three can be generalized or particularized. Now, class hierarchy and generalization specials. Anyatranthyebhyo visheshakyaha is talking of the leaf node in a classification, generalized classification or the samanya vishesha tree. Antrebhyo visheshebhya anyatra. That means except the specialization instance at the end of the class hierarchy, all others are part of the generalization. What is existence? Saditi yato dravya guna karmasu sa satta. Existence. Satta means what? It is existence from which the notion of perception that this is existence is generated from substances, qualities, and notions. So, what is existence? What is quality? I'm skipping all this. One existence, finally. This is where Advaita comes into picture. Saditi linga visheshat, vishesha linga abhavacha eko bhava. Existence is only one. Now, Prithvi, Ruparasagandha Sparshavati, Prithvi, Ruparasa Sparshatva, Apo Drava Snigdha. Now, I had to give a detailed commentary here. I have written here. What are these dravyas? Prithvi, Apastejo, Akasha is ether. What is Prithvi, Apastejo? It is not some abstract, mysterious thing. In one way, you can simply say solid, liquid, gas. Prithvi, Apastejo. Teja is energy. Akasha is ether and the space is the car. But it doesn't end there because each of these dravyas are called devatas in Veda. Prithvi devata, Agni devata, Vadi devata, Varuna devata, and they become personified in Puranas. Varuna devata ichadu, and Trupti Varsante, Vadi devudu. So to that extent, fine. But there is more to it. Because the whole existence is in three levels. Adhibhautika, Adhidevika, and Adhyatmika. In Adhyatmika level, he's talking of Eko Bhavaha, Advaita he told. Adhibhautika level, we know solid, liquid, gas. What about the Adhidevika level? Because Ya is Vayu Bija, Va is Aap Bija, La is Prithvi Bija, and Vayavyastra mantra is based on Ya. That means there is a state of vibration of mantra sounds, which is corresponding to that particular dravya or death. That is why they could put Vaisheshika without any physical activity, only the sound mantra. Arjuna would chant that mantra and then they settle. That technology is not known to modern science. The astras. Astras technology is not known in modern times, modern science. That is what is also to be understood. Those Bijaksharas, Ra is Agni Bija. If you want to prove it, you can say Ra, 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 Ra. 100 times you say right now, you'll get it. Or your cold will go away. You know when? When you say Ra, what is happening? Your tongue is going to the palate and is close is rubbing. So the heat is being created by compression of air. The opposite is cooling. Shh. Sitali pranayam. Opposite. Expansion of air. Bernoulli principle. Similarly, other Bijaksharas of Mantra Shastra. So it is all connected. Mantra Shastra, Devata, Veda, Vaisheshika, everything is connected. Astras. So I leave it at that. Tejo Rupa Sparshavan Vayuhu Ta Akashe Navidyante. In Akasha, none of them exist. Say? Sat, now, change of state. మనం ఉందాక చెప్పినటువంటి సాలిడ్ లిక్విడ్ గ్యాస్ అనేది సర్పజతు మధుచ్ఛిష్టానాం అగ్ని సంయోగా ద్రవత్వమద్భి సామాన్యం. Sarpi jatu madhuchishtanam. Sarpi means ghee. Jatu means lakka. Madhuchishta is beeswax. Even the solids. But Agni Samyoga, Dravatvam, Adhihi Samanyam. Same as Apa. So change of state he has explained. Prabhu, Sisa, Loha, Rajata, Suvarnanam, Agni Samyoga, Dravatvam, Adhi Samanyam. All metals. If you give heat, they become liquefied. Prabhu. Prabhu means what? What is Prabhu? Tin. Sisa, lead. Loha, iron. Rajata, silver. Suvarna, gold. I think we all prefer the last one. So all of them, given the Agni Samyoga, it will become Dravatvam, and it is common property, Samanyam with Apa. I'm skipping a lot of things because I will not be able to cover within this given time. Now I will go to the chapter 2. Till now I was only in chapter 1. Part 1 and part 2. So in time is defined. Aparasmin aparam yugapachiram kshipramiti skalalingani. Can anybody prove that time really exists? Some people say time does not exist. So he is giving indications of time. Aparasmin, laterness. Aparam, yugapat, simultaneity. Chiram, forever. Kshipram, fast. Iti, kalalingan. And you know, when somebody dies, and kalam happened, he made time. If he doesn't die, then he is not made any time. End of an event. Now space. Ita idamiti yatastadishyam lingam disha. Directional space. This, that, etc., etc. Directional space, location, Cartesian space. And all of them are permanent. All dravyas are permanent. In Veda they are called as devatas. Dravyatva nityatve vayuna vyakhyate. Karya visheshena dhanatvam. Diversity of different forms of space due to different effects. Because space is only one. Now the space in this hall and space in Trump's White House, are they different or same? Are they different or same? Water in Sagar, water in Gangotri, are they different or same? Tell me. But contaminations are different. Water is the same, space is the same. Contaminations.
And everything is called Kaṇāda. What?
Now he has defined all other gunas like samshaya, dukkha, sukha. So now very interesting to see how he is indicating the self as existing. Manas, can anybody prove that mind exists? Because in deep sleep there is no mind. Mind is gone. You are asleep. So mind lingam. Atmendriya prasannikarsham jnanasya bhavo abhavasya manaso lingam. Lingam means indication of manas what? Manasaha lingam bhavaha existence is due to jnana knowledge arising with the atmendriyartha sannikarsha. Atma and indriyarthas, that means objects which you see and hear and feel and touch. The indicative characteristic of mind is the existence and the non-existence of knowledge arising in the conjunction of the self with the senses and their objects. Such meticulous, subtle definitions not found anywhere else. Now, what are the characteristics of Atma? Pranapana nimishonmesha जीवन मनोगति इंद्रियांतर विकाराः सुख दुःख इच्छा द्वेष प्रयत्नाश्च आत्मनोलिंगानि. If you are not there, you will not have any feelings. Sukha dukkha or prayatna. ఇక్కడ అంతకన్నా వేరే లేదు, ఓన్లీ మనస్సు అండ్ ఆత్మ రెండే ఉన్నాయి ఇందులో. అది వేదాంతంలో వాళ్ళు బ్రేకప్ చేశారు. Inhalation, exhalation, closing, opening of eyelids, existence of life in the body, movement of the mind, modification of the senses, feelings of pleasure, pain, desire, and hatred, and also effort. By virtue of all the above indicated proofs, we have to accept the existence of self, even though classical physics has not addressed the existence of self. Only quantum physics. And tasya dravyatva nityatve vayuna vyakhyate, and that is permanent. Self is eternal, as much as prithvi, apa, tejo, all dravyas are eternal. So self is accepted as substance, and combination with mind becomes observed in quantum physics. So now there are many objections. A lot of people like Buddhists and all, they object, So he has covered all the Purvapakshas, and he explained the reasons and negation of objections. Devadatto gacchete iti pracharad abhimanatavat sharira pratyaksho ahankara. And if you say somebody X is going, Y is coming, like that, all the statements such as Devadatta goes, etc., are referring only to the body and not to the self. So he is distinguishing body and self. Not the sharira visheshat Yajnadatta Vishnurta Mitrayo Jnanam Vishaya. It is not that the knowledge of the subject is due to the existence of multiple different bodies. Ahamiti Mukhya Yogyam Sabdavat and so on. There are many proofs and again many objections. And final thing you have to understand is he has declared finally Vyavastato Nana. In practice, multiple cells exist. So this is what he declared in the second chapter. But in seventh chapter, just like multiple instances of all the dravyas, finally mean only one dravya. Multiple instances of self also mean only one self. Just now we proved that the space in this hall and White House Trump's room are same. So self in any one of you and Trump's cell both are same. So that's the Advaita. In essence, the tattva, Atma tattva is the same. Contaminations are different. Trump mind is highly contaminated, as you know, and our mind is less contaminated. Now, atomic theory, chapter 4. Sat akaranavat nityam. Ultimate cause. The atoms are declared as akaranavat, causeless. They don't have a cause. They're always dead, and they become the cause. They are permanent cause for all other interactions. Tasya karyam lingam. The effect is the indicative characteristic of the proof. Karanabhavat karyabhavaha once again. And then there are objections. And they'll say, objections will say, how can you say atoms are there? We cannot see them, etc., etc. Then he'll say, avidya, because of your ignorance. And how the atoms finally punaha prithivyaadi karya dravyam trividham sharirendriya vishaya sanyakam. All the substances such as prithvi are the effects and are of three category levels named as bodily, sensory, and sensory object based. So the whole Maya is being explained in a physical way here. Anusamyoga sapratishitha. Conjunction of atoms cannot be ruled out. Tatra shariram dvividham yonijam ayojanancha dharma visheshacha vedalingacha also indicated in the Veda. Anoraniyan mahato maniyan. Now, chapter 5 is on motion and force. Very interesting. We'll go deeply. Atma samyoga prayatnabhyam haste karma. Karma, motion in my hand. You will come due to prayatna. So with myself, I should first have a sankalpa. I want to move my hand. Atma samyoga prayatnabhyam haste karma. Okay, now. Tadha hasta samyoga cha musale karma. Musala means a stone. Suppose there is a stone. This is a stone. Now, due to my motion, the stone is also moving. Musala hasta samyoga cha musale karma. Samyoga means conjunction. Then immediately he says, abhighataje musalado karmani vyatirekad akaranam hasta samyoga tadha. Abhighatad musala samyoga hasteka. Now see this. First he said, hasta samyoga musaleka. Then he says, because of abhighata, because of the motion of this, there is a motion on my hand, the reaction. Abhighatad musala samyogad haste karma. Third law. Samyoga, suppose I'm holding something. Suppose there is no samyoga. Samyoga abhave grutvat patanam. It fall down. Free fall. No dhanavishesha abhava, no dhanati niyagamanam. No upward motion or no downward motion is possible without a force. So when it is falling freely, there is a force acting on it. He recognizes gravitation force. Gurutva was recognized by. Yeah, Gurutva, he repeatedly said, no? Prayatna vishesha, nodana vishesha. More effort means more speed. What is more speed? Acceleration. Nodana Vishesha, Udamana Vishesha, more speed, more acceleration, more force. So force is proportional to acceleration.
Physical term.
Yeah. All this I have interpreted in detail. I have shown by physical term also here. F is proportional to A. M has not talked about proportional to acceleration because it is not mathematical qualitative. The variety of motions. Tatha dagdhasya vispotane, in an explosion. There is an explosive motion. Sleep, and then vibratory motion, grass blades. Trinaye karma, vayu samyogat. Motion in grass blades due to vayu samyoga. Crystal motion, magnetic needle motion. Mani gamanam, mani means crystal. Suchi avsarpanam, magnetic needle movement. Iti adrishtagaritam, unseen force is causing it. He knows magnetism. Now, ballistic motion. Ishavayogapat samyoga vishesha karmanyatve hetuhu nodanadhyadhik. Now there is a bow and arrow. I put the bow on the arrow and I am pulling it and leaving it. Nodana adhyadhik karma. First motion starts with the arrow due to the force of my leaving. Ishavayogapat. When I am leaving it, samyoga vishesha karmanyatve hetuhu nodanadhyadhik. Ishoh karma. Isha means arrow. Tat karma karitacha, having performed that motion. Samskara, that samskara uttaram karma, tadha uttaram cha, kinetic energy. Samskara. Samskara bhave, gurutva, patanam. So I have explained complete 8th class ballistic motion from here. All these are in basic school textbooks. Everybody has studied physics. Samskarabhave gurutvat patanam. Motion in solids. Nodanabhigatat samyukta samyogacha prithiviyam karma. Motion in solids will happen due to force. Abhigat, not abhigatat. Impact or samyukta samyogacha. If you have a gunpowder combination without any force, it will explode. That Visheshana Adrishtagaritam. He always talks of unseen forces. Now, liquid state properties. Apam samyoga bhave gurutvat patanam. Suppose there is a vessel in which I am holding water. If there is no samyoga, no contact, water will fall down, free fall. Gurutvat patanam. Dravatvat syandanam. Dravatvat syandanam. Viscous flow. Due to liquidity. Nadyo vayu samyoga arohanam, evaporation. Vayu samyoga arohanam. Nadyo means also by sunlight. Arohanam. No, and also arohanam can also happen. Evaporation will also happen due to nodana apedanat, removing pressure. Samyukta samyoga. Now osmotic. Also he has explained. Vriksha visarpanam ityadrishtagaritam. Osmotic flow. Vrikshabhisarpanam iti adrishtagaritam. Now, apam sanghato vilayanancha tejas samyogat, condensation and decomposition. Apam sanghataha vilayanancha tejas samyogat. So what happens in the clouds? Sanghata will happen. If you pass electricity, water, vilayanam will happen. He knew both. Tatra vispurjaturlingam. That is electrical discharge, lightning. That is indication, proof. Vaidikancha in Veda also. Where is it in Veda? Garbhosyoshadhinam garbho vanaspathinam bhutasya vishwasya agne garbho apamasi. Agne garbho apamasi. Apam sanghato vilayanancha tejas samyogat. I went and met Vaisheshika Pandit in Shankarmati. He was not able to understand this connection. Because we know physics, we are able to understand. Apam samyoga vibhagat stanayitno, lightning, condensation of water, and also decomposition of water. If you pass electric charge, it will decompose. Vilayana. Sanghato vibhagancha stanayitno. So I stop here. All 5 chapters I covered. In chapter 7, he has talked about oneself finally, and he has talked about various other things in 7th, 8th, 9th. In 8th, talked about perception. In 9th, he talked about inference. And he defined yoga also, Atmastha Yoga. Being established yourself in this self is called yoga. So there are interconnections between darshanas. So I have covered the physics of Vaiśeṣika. I patented for your library here. Please keep it.